agenda, and this is item D6. And we'll open the public hearing on this item, and Mr. Jason Sorensen, our chief planner, is going to frame this item. And with that, Mr. Sorensen, you're recognized. He'll be teeing up a PowerPoint presentation here.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This next item is called the Zoning in Progress Ordinance. So why we're here today is during the April 23rd board hearing, staff was directed to move forward with this. What it is it is a temporary suspension of the acceptance of new applications for comprehensive plan text and map amendments, rezonings, and special exceptions. So there's several benefits to this. One, it allows staff to spend time on Vision 2050, which is anticipated to be adopted in September. It also prevents applicants to submit something that we're just not able to process prior to Vision 2050 being adopted, and also it provides staff more time to focus on processing the existing applications, which are under a time crunch to get adopted or approved prior to Vision 2050 adoption. So these are some of the things that the ordinance will do and what it won't do. It has no effect on applications that were submitted prior to the suspension. So what we have in process, or what we will have in process prior to the effective date of May 28th, will continue to be processed. Development approvals occurring within certain areas will not be included within the suspension. So those areas are Horizon West, Lake Pickett, Avalon Park, Innovation Way, and the iDrive District. Lastly, plan development change determinations will be unaffected. So if you already have your PD zoning, you can submit for a change determination. And lastly, the ordinance is set to expire 6 months from the effective date, unless early repealed by the board. So I just want to make clear, this is a suspension, not a development moratorium. So these are some of the things that make the differentiation. The suspension is temporary in nature. The suspension does not affect applications that were received by the county prior to the effective date of the ordinance. And development processes not described in the ordinance will continue. This includes building permits, along with development in the exception areas. So there were a couple drafts floating around. There was some changes at the Planning and Zoning Commission, a draft that was updated and provided to them. So these are some of the changes, just to make clear the version that will be decided upon today. So there were some grammatical and editing cleanups. We clarified that applications received prior to the effective date will not be affected, clarified that existing plan developments will be unaffected, and clarified the master plan communities that are exempt. And lastly, changed the effective date from May 21st to May 28th. This is the actual very detailed list of all the changes, just for the record. I'm not going to go through this. I just summarized all these changes. So the local planning agency is recommending that this be approved, and to allow staff to correct any substantial grammatical or scrivener's errors, and that completes my presentation.
All right, thank you. This is another administrative item being brought forward largely by staff. Do we have members of the public present who wish to be heard on this item? Okay.
I believe we have one, Mayor.
We have one person. If he had not completed the speaker's card, you can do that afterwards, so you can come forward to the microphone at this point.
We'll get it corrected. Christopher Cameron.
Okay. And please give us your name and your address for the record, please.
Well, actually, I have 11 addresses.
Well, the one where you get your mail.
Let me find out which one I put on the card. I just got 30 properties over here in the state of Florida.
The one on the driver's license.
So
Hastings.
whichever one.
My name's Christopher Cameron. Glad to be in y'all's community. What this is going to do is it's going to stop the development of 30 properties I just acquired that are going to be used for senior living facilities. So I need 2 weeks. And if I could get that, I can meet your deadline, but that's...
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to address your comments to us at this point.
Well, I wasn't expecting to speak. I just flew in yesterday and found out about this about an hour ago. But yeah, I just got these properties and I want to turn them into hospice facilities and residential assisted living facilities. But for me to apply, I need at least 2 weeks. So this passing next week on Tuesday, it's not going to work for me. So yeah, this is going to affect a lot of people's employment. So I don't know if we could actually prolong it. If we could actually prolong it, I will have 40 employees. If I can't, it's going to hold it back until October. So,
Okay, I think I understand the questions. You have to direct your questions to me.
well, I actually have a question if we could
If
actually
there are questions of
suspend
staff,
this.
then I'll have to direct them.
Yeah, it's going to it's going to impact the community. A lot of people are going to be without jobs, not going to be able to get this rezoned on time. So I just need an extension. I agree with it. Everything he has is a valid point, but the timing is horrible. So,
Okay.
5 months, no
Let me
employment for 40
understand what you're
employees.
saying. Have you already applied,
I just found out about it an hour ago.
or you have not applied?
Correct.
Okay. So, we'll come back to you,
All right.
to try to respond to your questions. Okay. Do we have other members of the public present who wish to be heard on this item? All right, and if you have not filled out a speaker card, then we'll ask you to do so also. Mr. Thalmuller, do we have his card?
We do not.
Okay,
We'll get somebody
so,
else there.
okay, so, name and address for the record, and if you haven't filled out a card, would you please do so? Before leaving?
I've not filled out a card. My name is David Freilich. I live at 8257 Breeze Cove Lane in Orlando, 32819. And I'm a former head of the Orange County Urban Design Commission when it existed. Shouldn't say head, member. I get a lofty feeling. Once I was a member, I felt I was the head of it.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway. As an architect and in working for developers over the years, I would say I do everything I can to not slow anything down. And this sounds like it's trying to slow something down. And no matter how admirable it may be for the need for that slowing, as an entity on behalf of the people, I'm not sure the people benefit that much. It's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fraley. Do we have other members of the public who wish to be heard? And Mr. Fraley, don't forget to fill out that speaker information. Do we have any others?
We have no other speaker cards, Mayor.
All right, so I'm going to, at this point, we'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask Mr. Sorensen to come back, and let's see if we can address the questions raised by Mr. Cameron.
Mayor, in discussions with the speaker, it does sound like the applications would be rezonings. He did speak to somebody in staff, and he is aware of Vision 2050, and it sounds like Vision 2050 would fix the situation for him in a lot of the instances. But he said that he still would like to submit to get those processed so that it's a quicker route for him to be able to submit. And he said he's not able to submit by May 28th because he'll be out of town. So that's kind of the summary of it. We're happy to work with him. It's a tough situation because even if we do accept the application, sometimes there's no guarantee that we'll be able to process him in time. We've already been telling applicants that they're submitting at their own, they just have to be aware that we may not be able to process their application in time. If it requires a conservation area determination, if it requires a community meeting, those things can take time, and we have the clock, the clock is ticking in order to get things approved prior to Vision 2050. So May 28th, we can work with him on getting those applications filled out if he needs help on that. But that's kind of the summary of the situation.
All right, I got it. With that, Commissioner Bonilla, do you have further questions?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it, because this is for comprehensive plan amendments. I heard it's a rezoning. So is it a rezoning or a comprehensive plan?
So it's three things: a comprehensive plan, map and text amendments, rezonings, and special exceptions.
Okay, but Vision 2050 goes through, then he automatically gets that comp plan change anyway.
I'd have to look through those.
Okay.
It's my understanding he said that Vision 2050 would allow him
So
to
it
do it.
depends on where it is and stuff,
Correct,
and what
yeah.
the
So-
future plans are for that property.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I was gonna think, well, usually these processes, because I was just thinking, yeah, this is probably gonna be hard on a lot of people. It's kind of like growing pains, but we're not growing, we're changing. And it usually takes 6 months for this process anyway, which is a 6-month suspension, so it just seems like this is how long it would take anyway. And once it's done, they're gonna get that change anyway, so it seems like it doesn't really make a difference anyway, but, you know, yeah, so it kind of like, if you think about it that way. But I did have another question too about the exceptions. I think I may know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Why is there an exception on the Lake Pickett one?
So the exceptions are for those areas that already have a designation that would essentially be unaffected by Vision 2050. Horizon West, Lake Pickett, I-Drive, Innovation Way. So that's why it's included, because it's one of those special intended areas that are going to be unaffected by Vision 2050.
So my question on Lake Pickett is that we are changing it though, because we're taking out those properties. But then are those properties that are being taken out of the map exempted? Like, see, that's where I'm kind of confused on that one. I understand the other ones aren't changing, but the Lake Pickett one is. So it's a bit confusing.
So Commissioner, as the board gave us direction to make the amendments, both text and map amendments for the Lake Pickett study area, we are moving forward with those as part of the adoption packet of Vision 2050. The only reason why you see Lake Pickett as part of the listed communities there is consistent with the answer that Jason just gave. It's part of the intended sector, the existing policies, and adopted regulations for those communities that are already adopted within that study area, including the GROW, would be able to continue to apply for change determinations or any other type of application, with the understanding that we have direction from the board to make the amendments to the northern community of Lake Pickett study area.
Just curious if anyone's as confused as I am. No. All right. Okay, so I'll just throw out a scenario, because so on Corner Lake, I don't know if you're familiar with the.
I am.
Okay, you have Corner Lake, let's say one of those properties north of on the north side of Corner Lake, which is being taken out, says, oh, I want to, throw in a comp plan amendment of something during this, but they're exempted, but they're being taken out of the Lake Pickett, so they won't be applying for the Lake Pickett. They'd be applying, let's say, for something else. Would they be able to? Because they're exempted from this? As the current, so, okay, let me ask the question this way. Is the exemption of the map on the map
23.
that we had said we want, that's going to be changing to, or is it on the map that it was before?
So Commissioner, you have not, as a board, you have not acted on the request. The effective vote on the changes will only happen during the adoption of Vision 2050, so that has not happened. So we would continue to receive applications within what has been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners.
So the GROW,
Yes. Adopted
but the
already.
other properties outside of the GROW, and I'm just any of them, it's not the, Lake Pickett North, could be one of the others, like I said, that just happened to be thrown into the map that isn't part of the GROW or Sustenance. What if they were like, hey, I want to throw in an application? Like, would they be exempted?
So that particular case that you're defining right now would have to be a PDRP, which is a plan development regulating plan within that area that we're now modifying. So those particular properties would have to request a PD application for that particular boundary.
But they don't have a comp plan amendment. though.
Correct.
So they'd have to
well,
apply
that would
for
be
a
the
comp plan
PD,
amendment.
right? They have a conceptual regulating plan, which is the.
No, they're not part of that.
Then I'm confused about the property that you're referring to. Because the ones that are within the study area,
They
north
didn't-
of Corner Lakes.
They
would-
don't have a future land use.
Correct, and that's the application. It would be a PD plan development to change the existing current future land use to LP, the Lake Pickett future land use. And that would be what we would be receiving and reviewing, but in this particular case, that particular property falls within the area in question, which is, we do not have, it is an area that is under review right now in terms of the text and map that apply for that application to take place.
So because it's so confusing, we're changing the map. How about we not exempt it? I mean, the Grove already have all of their future land use, right? They're all set, aren't they?
They are.
So-
They have their adopted future land use and
Yeah.
regulating plan in place.
So
That's
they don't
correct.
have to do any more comp plan amendments or future land use maps. So why do we have to exempt them then?
That might be a legal question.
I think the short answer is that you have not adopted Vision 2050 yet, so those proposed changes are not effective. This is related to the current existing today comp plan in which those policies and that map are in your adopted comp plan.
Yes, and so, but it's just the same situation then as every other property in Orange County that we are putting this suspension on.
I'm not getting at, I'm answering the question about whether or not it was the map that exists that's going to exist based on your
Oh,
proposal
yeah, I don't think
change to
that's the
Vision
question
2050.
the mayor just asked, though.
No, I didn't ask the question. They were responding to your question.
Oh,
Commissioner.
then, yeah, that's not sorry, that's not answering the question that we were asking.
The mayor didn't ask a question, he simply threw it to me. I was answering the question that
Yeah.
you had asked
Right.
related to the maps.
She's answering your question.
So,
I'm answering your question.
okay, so, but it's not answering the question. Sorry, it's not answering what I'm trying to ask, though. So I'm saying is that looking at the details of it, that property is in the same situation as every other property, like in Orange County. So it's going, so like Horizons West, for example, it's better if I give an example. So Horizons West, right? It's not changing whatsoever from now to Vision 2050. Lake Pickett, though, is in a different situation. It is changing.
It could change based on this board's decision.
Yeah,
at
but
the
so is
adoption
everything
hearing.
else. So what I'm saying is Lake Pickett is in the same situation as every other property in Orange County besides Horizon West, and I think the other one was Innovation Way or whatever.
Today, however, Lake Pickett is in the same position as the other areas in which that it has been exempted, in that it carries that special planning designation in the current comp plan. So I think you're comparing the possible adoption of Vision 2050 and what that decision could be to Horizons West today. So Horizons West today and Horizons West post-Vision 2050 adoption may not change. But today, the Lake Pickett area falls within the same category. So based on when this direction was given to the board to bring this ordinance forward, we treated it the same as Horizons West. So that's why the exemption is contained within the draft that's before you today.
Okay, but the reason why we're doing the suspension is to prevent issues or confusions of changes happening when we're trying to go in a certain direction.
Right. So that's a policy call for the board in the consideration of this public hearing, but that is why the exemption was contained in the draft that's presented for you today.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the requested action.
I haven't called the question yet.
Yeah, but we don't,
It's,
according to our rules and regulations, we don't
we'll-
need you to
we'll still
call the
have-
question
we'll-
to make a motion.
Procedurally, you do.
But Christina Moore does this all the time.
I still have not called the question, and we're still getting input. If you're done, Commissioner, then I will, at some point, I will call the question. But,
Okay, just,
okay.
I mean, is there a certain, procedurally, can you explain the difference between what I was trying to do and what, like, Christine Moore did with the Visit Orlando?
I'm not
motion,
going back on that. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand the
again, walk through the
procedures.
process. Are you through asking questions?
I'd like to make a motion for the requested action,
That's
but
not what I
taking
asked you,
out
Commissioner.
the exception of Lake
Are you
Pickett.
through asking questions at this point?
Yes, I am, and I made a
Okay.
motion.
All right. So do we have any other members of the board who have any questions? Okay. If we have no questions, then if you would like to make a motion, you can make a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion for the requested action, taking out the exception for the Lake Picket.
And that may, given what the county attorney said, I want to make sure that whatever we're doing here, we're not creating an unequal kind of position for any property owners or developers pursuant to what is being suggested now.
I would only repeat that the map 22, that is the subject of the reference at line 94, Lake Picket map 22, future land use map 23, is currently in your adopted comp plan. So the requested action by Commissioner Bonilla would to treat that area differently than the other master plan communities.
But it'd be treating it the same way as any other property in Orange County that we're doing this. The reason why we're doing the suspension is to prevent confusion, which can happen, unfortunately, on this property because it's different than the other properties.
Okay, so Commissioner Bonilla, let me understand what you're saying. In terms of, you don't have an issue with the other master plan communities that were identified in the presentation?
Yeah, so let me try
where
to,
we-
yeah, so let me clarify a little bit more. So so those exceptions, right, like Horizon West, Avalon Park, Innovation Way, iDrive, they are going to stay the same in Vision 2050. Now, let's say the property in unincorporated, like, let's say my property, whatever, like I just throw, like where I live, my property, right? It's not included in any of these here. But it's going to be included in the suspension because my property, I'm just throwing out an example, may change with Vision 2050, with a lot of, like, all the other properties in Orange County. So it's going to change. So Lake
I
Picket
understand
is
that.
going to change too. If Vision, you keep saying if Vision 2050, it's in this, Lake Picket is in the same situation as all the other properties, where if Vision 2050 gets approved, then these changes are going to happen. But Horizon West, Avalon Park, Innovation Way, iDrive are going to stay the same. So the suspension, the purpose of it is to prevent any confusions or complications between that change, which is why I'm saying then Lake Picket should be suspended as well to prevent that confusion and that complication in that change.
Okay, let's
I'm
have
trying to
staff,
explain it as well as I can.
let's have staff respond to that because what I'm hearing is something a little bit different from what staff is saying, what you're saying, and what the county attorney's office is advising us at this point. What is before us is this language with enumerated master plan communities that would not be subjected to the temporary suspension. And it sounds to me like what you're saying is let's take Lake Picket out of consideration for this process and make Lake Picket similar to other properties within Orange County, which does not include these master plan communities. And so in some regard, it would be treating, if the determining factor here is the master plan communities that already exist, it's like you would be treating Lake Picket different than the other master plan communities.
Mayor, if I may jump in, I actually believe the commissioner is correct. So the reason we have these exceptions for Horizon West, Avalon Park, Innovation Way, and International Drive is because Vision 2050 and Orange Code is largely leaving those areas of the county unaffected with the new comprehensive plan and the new regulatory requirements. You still have to do PDs in those areas of the county, and the underlying future land use map is not changing. For the Grove, for example, while it's, Lake Pickett was listed as a master plan community, the Grove, which would be the only remaining parcel with Vision 2050 in the Lake Pickett study area, is unaffected because it's an existing PD. And so I don't think, would agree with the commissioner, I don't think the exception is necessary because anything left, any of the other parcels within the current Lake Pickett study area, most of those are probably being removed with the Vision 2050 package, so they are changing, which is, again, one of the reasons we've sort of closed off the rest of the county is to minimize that. But then when you look at, what the requirements, as Alberto was attempting to describe, for any future application like Pickett, it's a comp plan amendment and a rezoning going through a very specific process. And so I don't believe that deleting Lake Pickett from this list would have an adverse impact in terms of the county's ability to continue to process applications where appropriate, and then also make sure that we've been able to work through the backlog of existing applications within the time frame of getting Vision 2050 to the finish line. I think we can make that change. I think that's workable.
Okay, so for the clerk, we would have to offer some specific language to Commissioner Bonilla's motion so that it is well articulated what it is that we would be voting on. Okay, so Ms. Holmes, do you have said
do.
language?
I do, Mayor. So based on Commissioner Bonilla's motion, we would remove, there is a list of 5 master plan communities enumerated from line 92 to 99. We would remove the item number 2 and renumber 3, 4, and 5 accordingly.
Okay, and does all of the staff understand? Okay, and does the clerk, do you have the language?
Yes, and then you're also going to, within that motion, the changes that were made to the draft ordinance from May 12th that Mr. Sorensen had on the slide, because that's not the current ordinance we have.
Yes.
That's included in the motion? Okay.
Okay, so.
Second.
So by this action, there's 2 things that we're doing, right? Is that what the clerk is saying? Okay, all right. And so with that, Commissioner Moore, did you say second?
Yeah, but she said she had second, but I was going to second the motion.
Oh,
Because I wasn't
I'm
sure we
sorry.
had.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear all of that. Okay, all right. Commissioner Moore is the seconder on the motion. All right, so all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, the motion passes and it is unanimous. All right. With that, I believe that was the final item of the day. And so to all of you who are watching, we stand adjourned.